Alright, welcome back. So it's been almost 2 years since we planted the trees here. I just thought it was worth doing a recap on the project, tell you what's been happening in the second year, and also give some exciting news for the future. So we bought the land here about 4 years ago now, close to where we live in Scotland, and we're really passionate about mixed use forests. So that's forests that are good for people, great for nature, and produce timber. So we've planted a diverse range of different species here, and long term we're going to manage it under a method called continuous cover forestry. This means we'll only fell a small percentage of the trees at a time for timber, leaving most of the trees behind, creating a place that always feels and acts like a forest. It also means we'll end up with a diverse range of both different species but also ages, and that's really important for biodiversity. It looks visually attractive and it's resilient to potential climate change impacts of the future. So we've got about 80 acres of land here. Originally 80% of that was grazing land and about 20% was existing woodland, like we've got behind me. And we planted the trees here 2 years ago now. It took a while to get the permissions and the grants in place, and we've got about 15 different timber producing trees species here and a further 20 which are just for biodiversity reasons. So we've got a mixture of both broadleaf and conifers. I've got a lot of native trees, but we've also got some trees from other countries, and that's because of resiliency. So as the climate changes and we have more pests and diseases coming, we need to have a greater variety of different trees to make sure our forests keep on functioning well into the future. Before I talk more about this wood, I wanted to highlight why growing timber is so important. Timber is a fantastic material for building homes, furniture, and many other things we take for granted, especially because in long-term uses like construction, it locks away carbon for decades to come. But the UK imports 80% of the timber we use, and I think it's our environmental responsibility to grow more of our own timber, taking full control of how the forests that grow our timber are managed so that they can benefit nature as well as people. Right, back to our wood. As I mentioned already, it took us about 1.5 years to plan, get the permissions and the grants needed to plant the trees here. Then it took about 6 months to do the preparation for tree planting, including building a fence to keep the deer out, which would otherwise eat the new trees, preparing the ground by turning over the soil, which each tree would go in to reduce the competition from other plants in the first couple of years, then finally planting all 60,000 trees. But that is only the start of getting a new woodland established. The first year after we planted the trees was challenging. Small trees are very susceptible to being eaten, being outcompeted by other plants, and suffering from the weather. One of the first issues was an explosion of the grass now the sheep had gone, and many of the trees we'd received were a lot smaller than we'd ordered, meaning the grass was soon taller than them, reducing their light and restricting their growth. So we ended up trampling the grass around the worst impacted trees to help them out. We had a similar issue with the light in the bracken areas, which covers about 10% of the land here. The bracken needs cutting twice, once in June and again in August, as it grows so quickly. Then as the year ended, the vole population exploded, in part because there is so much more grass for them now to live in. When food becomes more scarce, the voles eat the stems of the young trees. All our broadleaf trees had vole guards put on them when they were planted, 20 centimetre high tree tubes to protect them, but none of our conifers did. And some of the softer bark ones were very tasty to the voles. So we had to spend a lot of the time putting guards onto these trees last winter. The second year has in general been much better. Year one in some ways is more about the trees getting used to the shock of going from a very comfortable time in the tree nursery to fending for themselves. Year two has been when they've really started to grow. A lot of the trees are now over 1 metre high, with a few nearly 3 metres tall. At the moment, the broadleaves are winning on average height, led by the birch, but I'm sure as the years go by, the conifers will jump ahead. And we've done a much better job with the bracken this year, cutting at the right times. In fact, in many places, trees in the bracken are doing better than their neighbours in the grass, likely due to the better soil and protection from the elements. It hasn't all been plain sailing though. This sycamore and Norway maple area has suffered, with more than 10% of the trees dead and most of the rest hardly growing. It's probably a lack of water in the summer and high competition with the grass for that water which is causing the problems. So this winter we've been replacing the dead trees with birch and aspen that have done much better in similar neighbouring areas. It's kind of hard to kind of believe that it's been 4 years since I've been sharing this story with you, and I think going forward in this wood, I'm gonna keep giving updates every 6 months or so. But what I'm excited about is to have a new project, and this is it. We're planning a new productive woodland here for people and nature. But that's only half the story. We're going to be creating a unique woodland experience by building a collection of beautifully designed cabins immersed in the new trees. And guests won't just be visitors, they'll become part of this woodland story. Firstly, by helping to plant the trees, and then by nurturing them into a thriving woodland. All the time being able to relax and appreciate the beauty of nature. After 1.5 years of planning, we're just waiting for the final permissions we need before revealing the location. But I will say it's on the west coast of Scotland. You can sign up to the project's email newsletter on the link below, and even become a founding member, playing a larger part in the design. I do really want your help in making this a success. As always, if you're enjoying following along, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video when I'll be giving more detail about this new project.